You don't expect the call. That's the whole point. You train for it, you prepare for it, you position yourself for it, but when it comes through, it still hits you like a damn freight train. That's what happened to me in 1980, operating out of a supposedly quiet sector in South America. Quiet. That's a laugh. Nothing's quiet during the Cold War. Everything's in motion. Everything's an opportunity. You just have to be ready when opportunity knocks, and brother, when it knocks, it doesn't wait around for you to get your shit together. I was running under commercial cover at the time. Mining equipment consultant. Made perfect sense for the region. South America was full of mining operations, always expanding, always needing technical expertise and equipment. Gave me reason to move around, ask questions, meet people who knew people. The kind of access you need when you're working intelligence operations in denied territory. The Soviets were all over South America in the early 80s. Cuba was exporting their damn revolution wherever Moscow pointed them. The KGB had more stations in South America than some countries had embassies. We were working overtime just to keep track of who was who and what they were doing. The call came through one of our local assets, trusted guy, been working with us for years. He didn't use the phone. He didn't send a runner. He showed up at my hotel room door just after midnight, looking like he'd seen a ghost or won the lottery, couldn't tell which. When I opened the door, he pushed past me, checked the room like he expected Soviet commandos to be hiding in the bathroom, then turned and said 5 words that made my blood pressure spike. Soviet pilot wants to defect. Now, I've been around. I've heard a lot of intelligence pitches. Most of them are bullshit. People trying to sell you information they don't have, trying to manufacture value where none exists, trying to con their way into some cash. But this guy wasn't pitching. He was scared, real scared. And when an asset who's been solid for years shows up scared at midnight with news like that, you listen. You listen hard. Tell me everything, I said. Start from the beginning. He sat down, lit a cigarette, was shaking hands, started talking. Turns out, a Soviet Air Force pilot, a MiG-23 driver, had made contact through an intermediary. The pilot was stationed at a Soviet advisory facility about 200 miles north, training local Air Force pilots on Soviet equipment, standard Cold War cooperation package. The Soviets provided the planes, provided the training, provided the strings to pull the local government whichever direction Moscow wanted. This pilot had been in country for 8 months, spoke decent Spanish, had access to the flight line, and according to my asset, the pilot wanted out, not just out of his posting, out of the Soviet Union, out of the whole damn system. He wanted asylum, American asylum, and he wanted to bring his plane with him, a MiG-23, a frontline Soviet fighter bomber, the kind of intelligence gold mine that makes careers and fills classified libraries. We'd captured Soviet equipment before defectors brought small arms, documents, technical manuals, but a complete operational aircraft flown out by its own pilot, that was the kind of opportunity that comes around once in a career, maybe once in a generation, the kind of thing you volunteer for, the kind of thing you don't turn down, ever. How credible is this? I asked my asset. Very credible, he said. The intermediary is solid, known him for years. He's scared shitless, but he's solid. The pilot wants to meet, wants to talk terms, wants guarantees. Guarantees, I said. Everyone wants guarantees. What's his timeline? Soon. Very soon. He says his rotation is ending in 3 weeks. If he doesn't move before then, he goes back to the Soviet Union. And he's not going back. 3 weeks. That was nothing. Less than nothing. Setting up a defection operation takes time, background checks, security protocols, coordination with higher headquarters, establishing secure communications, planning extraction routes, arranging safe houses, coordinating with host nation authorities if you're lucky enough to have that option. 3 weeks was a damn sprint. But that's the game. The opportunities don't wait for your planning cycle to catch up. You adapt, you move, you make it happen, or you watch the opportunity walk past you and disappear forever. Set up a meet? I told him. Secure location. Neutral ground. I want to look this pilot in the eye and hear his story directly, and I want to know exactly what he's bringing to the table. My asset nodded. When? Tomorrow night. Late. Make it happen. He left the same way he came in, fast, nervous, looking over his shoulder. I locked the door behind him and stood there in the dark hotel room, mind already running through possibilities. A Soviet MiG-23 pilot wanting to defect. It could be legitimate. It could be a dangle KGB operation designed to identify our networks, burn our assets, compromise our operations. It could be a trap. It could be the intelligence coup of the decade. Only one way to find out. You volunteer for it, you get involved, you take the walk, and see where it leads. I didn't sleep much that night, started making plans, started thinking through contingencies, started preparing for a meeting that could change everything or blow up in my face. That's the business. That's what you sign up for. And brother, when an opportunity like this comes along, you don't ask permission, you don't wait for approval, you move, you act, you seize the moment and deal with the consequences later. Because a warrior is a guy who wishes to be involved, period. And I was about to get very involved. The meet was set for an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. My asset arranged it through his intermediary, a local businessman with connections on both sides of the Cold War divide. These guys exist everywhere. They facilitate, they broker, they make introductions. Sometimes they're reliable, sometimes they're working 3 different angles at once. You evaluate them the same way you evaluate everyone else, by their actions, not their words. I arrived early, always arrive early. Gives you time to check the site, identify potential problems, establish escape routes, get a feel for the environment. The warehouse was perfect for this kind of thing. Abandoned, isolated, plenty of sight lines, multiple exits. I positioned myself where I could see the entrance but stay in shadow. Brought my asset with me, told him to stay near the back door in case things went sideways. Carried my 1911 pistol. Didn't expect to need it, but you don't go to meets like this unarmed, ever. They showed up right on time, 10 o'clock at night. The intermediary came in first, checked the warehouse, gave me a nod, then the pilot walked through the door, and I got my first look at him. Young, maybe late 20s, slim build, dark hair, wore civilian clothes, jeans, plain shirt, leather jacket, looked nervous as hell but trying to hide it. The kind of nervous you see in people who've made a decision they can't take back. The kind of nervous that comes from knowing you're about to burn every bridge you've ever crossed and there's no going home again. I'd seen it before. Seen it in defectors from a dozen different countries. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. The ones who made it were the ones who committed fully. The ones who understood there was no halfway. This pilot had that look. The look of a man who'd already crossed a line in his head and now needed to cross it in reality. I stepped out of the shadow, let him see me, let him size me up. He did the same thing I was doing, evaluating, calculating, trying to figure out if this was real or if he was walking into a trap. Trust is a funny thing in this business. Nobody trusts anybody. You verify, you test, you confirm. But at some point, somebody has to take the first step. Somebody has to extend a hand. Somebody has to say, I'm here, let's talk. I extended my hand. Billy, I said, you wanted to talk. I'm listening. He shook my hand, firm grip, steady. Yevgeny, he said, his English was decent, accented but clear. Thank you for coming. I know this is dangerous for you. It is dangerous for me also. Danger is part of the job, I said. Let's talk about why you're here, why you want out, and what you're bringing with you. We sat down on a couple of old crates. The intermediary stood near the door. My asset stayed in the back. Just the two of us talking. Yevgeny pulled out a cigarette, offered me one. I declined. He lit up, took a long drag, and started talking. His story was the same as 100 other Soviet defector stories I'd heard over the years. Disillusionment with the system, frustration with the corruption, fear of the future, loss of faith in the party, the usual reasons. But there was something else, something deeper. He had a family back in the Soviet Union, a wife, a daughter, and he knew that if he defected, he'd never see them again. That's the price. That's what the Soviet system does to its people. It makes family into hostages. It makes love into leverage. It makes human connection into a weapon of control. And Yevgeny understood that, understood it completely. And he was still here, still asking for asylum. That told me something important. It told me he wasn't just running from something. He was running toward something, toward freedom, toward a life where his decisions were his own, toward a future that wasn't dictated by Moscow. I want to bring the aircraft, he said. The MiG-23, complete, operational, everything intact, navigation systems, weapon systems, communications, radar, all of it. I can deliver it to you, but I need guarantees. I need protection. I need asylum, not just for a few months, permanent American citizenship, new identity, a life. That can be arranged, I said. But I need details. I need to know how you're going to do this. I need to know the risks. I need to know the timeline. He laid it out. It was simple, almost too simple. But sometimes the simple plans are the best ones. He had routine training flights scheduled, solo flights, low-level navigation exercises. The flight plan took him over open terrain, away from population centers, away from radar coverage. He'd follow a standard flight plan, take off, follow the route for the first 30 minutes, then break off. Head south, fly low, stay under radar, find the landing site we'd agreed on. Set the bird down, walk away. We'd secure the aircraft, get him out, get the MiG to a location where we could properly exploit it. The whole operation would take maybe 2 hours from takeoff to secure. After that, the Soviets could chase ghosts all they wanted. The pilot and the plane would be ours. What about the landing site? I asked. You need a prepared strip, something that can handle a MiG-23. That's not a light aircraft. That's a heavy fighter bomber with specific requirements. There is an abandoned airstrip, Yevgeny said, 40 miles south of the Soviet facility. Used to be a commercial freight operation. They moved to a larger airport 3 years ago. The strip is still there, still intact, long enough, strong enough. I have flown over it during training flights. It will work. I thought about it. An abandoned airstrip, isolated location, no current operations. It could work, but it needed reconnaissance, needed verification, needed to make sure the strip was actually usable and not just a patch of crumbling concrete that would tear the landing gear off a MiG the second it touched down. I need to see this strip. I said, I need to verify it's viable, and I need to position assets to secure it when you land. That takes preparation. That takes time. How much time do we have? 2 weeks, Yevgeny said. I have a solo training flight scheduled 2 weeks from now. Early morning, 6 o'clock departure. Flight plan has me airborne for 90 minutes. If I am going to do this, that is when it must happen. After that, my rotation ends. I go back to the Soviet Union, and I do not go back. 2 weeks, 14 days to plan, coordinate, position, and execute a defection operation involving a Soviet fighter pilot and his aircraft. It was tight, damn tight, but it was doable. I'd worked faster timelines before. The question wasn't whether we had enough time. The question was whether Yevgeny had the nerve to actually go through with it. A lot of people talk about defecting. They dream about it, they fantasize about it, but when the moment comes when they have to actually climb into that cockpit and point the nose toward freedom and commit treason against their own country, a lot of them can't pull the trigger. They freeze. They panic. They turn back. And if Yevgeny turned back, this whole operation was for nothing. You understand what you're doing, I said. You understand there's no going back. Once you take off on that flight plan and break south, you're committed. No second thoughts, no changing your mind, no halfway. You're either all in or you're out. There's no middle ground. You understand that? Yevgeny looked at me, held my eyes, didn't blink. I understand. I am all in. I want out of this system. I want freedom. I want a life. And I am willing to pay the price, whatever it is. All right, I said. We'll make this happen. I'll coordinate the reception. I'll secure the landing site. I'll have people in position. You fly the bird. You land it. You walk to me. I'll handle the rest. 2 weeks, early morning, 6 o'clock departure. Don't be late. We shook hands again. Yevgeny stood up. Looked like a weight had been lifted off him, or maybe like the weight had just doubled. Hard to tell. Defectors live in a strange mental space between relief and terror. They're escaping one system and walking into another. They're trading one set of fears for a different set. But the ones who make it through are the ones who commit fully. The ones who understand that freedom has a cost and they're willing to pay it. He left with the intermediary. My asset came out from the back. You believe him? He asked. Doesn't matter if I believe him, I said. Matters if he shows up. We'll know in 2 weeks. Until then, we prepare, we get ready, we position the pieces. And when the moment comes, we execute. That's the job. We left the warehouse, drove back through the dark streets, started planning an operation that would either be the intelligence coup of the year or a complete clusterfuck. That's the business. That's what you sign up for. You take the opportunities when they come, you prepare for them, you execute, and you deal with whatever happens next. The next morning, I started moving pieces into position. First priority was reconnaissance of that abandoned airstrip. I couldn't send Yevgeny's intermediary too much risk of exposure if the Soviets were watching him. I couldn't go myself too visible in the operational area. And my cover as a mining equipment consultant didn't give me good reason to be poking around old airstrips. I needed someone local. Someone who could move through the region without raising questions. Someone who could assess the strip and report back with accurate information. My asset had a cousin who ran a small transport business, delivered supplies to remote mining sites, agricultural operations, small towns scattered across the countryside, perfect cover for driving around looking at infrastructure. I had my asset bring him in for a brief meeting. Didn't tell him everything, didn't need to. Just told him I needed detailed reconnaissance of a specific location. Gave him the coordinates, told him what to look for. I need runway condition, I said. Length, surface integrity, obstacles on the approaches, drainage, signs of recent use, photographs of everything, measurements, if you can get them without being obvious. And I need it within 48 hours. He nodded, didn't ask why, didn't ask what it was for, just took the coordinates and left. That's the kind of asset you want. The kind who understands that questions compromise operational security. The kind who does the job and keeps his mouth shut. He came back in 36 hours, brought a folder full of photographs and handwritten notes, spread them out on the table in my hotel room, started walking me through what he'd found. The airstrip was exactly where Yevgeny said it would be. 43 miles south-southwest of the Soviet facility. The main runway ran east-west, measured just over 6,000 feet, long enough for a MiG-23 if the pilot knew what he was doing. The surface was deteriorating cracked concrete, vegetation growing through some of the gaps, obvious signs of weather damage and neglect, but the structural integrity looked sound. The concrete was thick enough to handle the weight. The cracks weren't severe enough to cause problems with landing gear. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. The approaches were clear. No tall obstacles, no power lines, no buildings close enough to interfere with landing or takeoff patterns. The terrain around the strip was relatively flat. Some rolling hills to the west, but nothing that would create dangerous wind patterns or turbulence. Good sight lines in all directions. You could see vehicles approaching from miles away. Hard to sneak up on the place. The old terminal building was still standing. Single-story structure, maybe 80 feet long, 30 feet deep. Windows mostly broken out, doors hanging off hinges. But the roof was intact and the walls were solid. Plenty of space inside to stage vehicles and equipment. Good cover from aerial observation. Multiple entry and exit points. Any signs of recent activity? I asked. None, he said. No tire tracks, no footprints, no trash or debris that looked fresh. The whole place is abandoned, has been for years. Nobody's using it for anything. Local traffic in the area? Minimal. There's a dirt road that connects to the main highway about 5 miles east. Occasional farm vehicles, maybe 1 or 2 cars a day. Nothing regular. Nothing that would interfere with operations. Perfect. Sometimes you get lucky with locations. Sometimes the operational environment cooperates. This was shaping up to be one of those times. An isolated airstrip, structurally sound, clear approaches, minimal civilian traffic, good cover and concealment options. Everything we needed to make this work. I paid the driver for his reconnaissance work. Told him to forget he'd ever been there. Told him to destroy his notes and photographs after I copied them. He nodded, took his money, left. Another piece of operational security locked down. Next priority was positioning assets and equipment. I needed people on the ground when that MiG touched down, people who could secure the aircraft, protect the pilot, establish a perimeter, and hold the site until we could get the bird moved to a more secure location. I reached out through secure channels to a couple of SF guys I knew operating in adjacent sectors. First guy was Mike, senior sergeant, 18 years in special forces, multiple deployments to bad places doing difficult things, spoke Spanish fluently, knew the region, knew how to operate in denied territory, knew how to stay invisible when necessary, and how to be extremely visible when that was required. Good man, solid operator, the kind of guy you want next to you when things get complicated. Second guy was Tom, younger, less experienced but sharp as hell, communications specialist, could set up secure comms in the middle of nowhere with duct tape and wire, could intercept enemy transmissions, could establish encrypted channels that nobody could break, also spoke decent Spanish, and had worked counterintelligence operations before, knew how to spot surveillance, knew how to identify threats. Another good man. I sent encrypted communications through established channels, laid out the situation in general terms, told him I had a sensitive operation developing, asked if they were available for temporary assignment, asked if they wanted in. Both of them came back with the same response. When and where. That's Special Forces culture right there. You don't ask a bunch of questions. You don't need detailed briefings before you commit. You don't require approval from 6 levels of bureaucracy. You just say yes. You volunteer. You get involved. You trust that the guy asking wouldn't be asking unless it mattered. I arranged a secure meeting, brought Mike and Tom in separately through different routes, met them at a safe house on the outskirts of the city, gave them the full brief. Soviet pilot defecting with MiG-23, 2-week timeline. Abandoned airstrip as landing site. Need for reception team to secure aircraft and pilot. Potential for Soviet pursuit or interference. High intelligence value. High operational risk. They listened without interrupting, looked at the reconnaissance photographs, studied the maps, asked tactical questions about sight lines, escape routes, communications protocols, contingency plans, professional operators, evaluating a professional operation. No drama, no hesitation, just calm, assessment of requirements and risks. When do we move into position? Mike asked. 3 days before the operation, I said. Gives you time to establish observation posts, confirm the strip stays clear, watch for Soviet activity, set up communications. I'll be on site the morning of the operation. We'll coordinate through encrypted radio, have multiple fallback plans if things go sideways. What's the Soviet response capability? Tom asked. If they detect the defection during the flight, what are we looking at? Best case, they think it's mechanical failure and scramble search and rescue, I said. Worst case, they realize it's a defection and scramble interceptors or ground response teams. The Soviet facility has helicopters, probably armed, probably can put a team in the air within 30 minutes of detecting a problem. That's our window. We need the MiG on the ground, the pilot secured, and initial extraction underway before Soviet response develops. What about host nation military? Mike asked. Are they going to interfere? Unknown, I said. Best scenario is they never know what happened until it's over. We're operating in a relatively remote area. Low probability of immediate detection. But if they do detect, if they do respond, we need to be ready to explain the situation and coordinate with local authorities. I've got contingency communication set up with station for that scenario. Rules of engagement? Tom asked. Defensive only, I said. We're not here to start a firefight with the Soviets or the host nation. We're here to secure an aircraft and protect a defector. If we're threatened, we defend ourselves. But the goal is to avoid engagement entirely. Speed and stealth. Get in, get the bird, get out. Clean operation, start to finish. They both nodded. Understood perfectly. These weren't cowboys looking for action. These were professionals who understood that the best operations are the ones where nobody fires a shot, where everything happens so fast and so smoothly that the opposition doesn't have time to react, where you're gone before they even realize something happened. Equipment requirements? Mike asked. Standard combat load, I said. Rifles, sidearms, ammunition, communications gear, medical supplies, binoculars, night vision if you have it, camouflage appropriate for the terrain, water, food for 3 days, anything you need to establish and maintain observation posts for 72 hours. Transportation? I'll provide vehicles. 2 trucks, 4-wheel drive, nondescript, registration documentation that won't raise questions if you're stopped. You'll drive separately into the area. Different routes, different timing. Establish your observation posts independently. Maintain radio silence except for scheduled check-ins or emergencies. Extraction plan if the operation fails, Tom asked. Rally point 15 miles south of the airstrip, I said. Coordinates in your briefing packet. If the operation collapses, if we're compromised, if the Soviets show up before we can secure the bird, everyone extracts to the rally point. We consolidate there, assess the situation, execute fallback plan. Nobody gets left behind. Mike looked at Tom. Tom looked at Mike. Some kind of silent communication between operators who'd worked together before. Then Mike looked at me. We're in, he said. When do we start? Tomorrow, I said. Staging begins tomorrow. Movement into operational area begins in 10 days. Execution in 14 days. Questions? None, Tom said. We'll be ready. I gave them their briefing packets, detailed maps, photographs, communications protocols, rally point coordinates, emergency contact procedures, equipment lists, timeline, everything they needed to prepare. They took the packets, studied them for a few minutes, committed the critical information to memory. Standard operational practice, you don't carry documents into the field unless absolutely necessary. You memorize what you need and destroy the paper trail. They left separately. Mike first, then Tom 30 minutes later. Different routes out of the safe house, different destinations, operational security maintained at every step. That's how professionals operate. Nothing left to chance, nothing exposed unnecessarily, every detail planned, every contingency covered. I spent the next several days coordinating the rest of the operation. Arranged for heavy transport to move the MiG once it was on the ground. Contacted technical exploitation teams to start preparing for detailed analysis. Sent encrypted communications to station explaining the situation and requesting authorization to proceed. Set up secure communications with Yevgeny through the dead drop system. Positioned emergency medical support in case the pilot was injured during landing. Arranged for safe house facilities to receive Yevgeny after the operation. Coordinated with higher headquarters on asylum procedures and debriefing protocols. The authorization came back faster than expected. Full support for the operation. Additional resources available if needed. Priority intelligence requirement. Coordinate with station for technical exploitation. Ensure pilot safety during debriefing process. Minimize exposure to host nation authorities until asset and equipment are secured. Standard protocols. Nothing surprising. The higher-ups understood what we were getting. A complete operational MiG-23 and its pilot. Intelligence goal. I established the dead drop system with Yevgeny through the intermediary. Simple but effective. He would leave messages at a specific location, a loose brick in a wall behind an abandoned building near the market. The intermediary would collect the messages daily and pass them to my asset. My asset would bring them to me. I'd respond the same way in reverse, slow but secure. Each message was brief, written in simple code, easy to destroy if necessary. Yevgeny's messages confirmed he was holding steady, training flights proceeding normally. No unusual Soviet security measures. No indication his intentions were suspected. Flight schedule confirmed for 2 weeks out. Solo navigation exercise, 90-minute flight plan, perfect cover for the defection. Each message ended the same way. Ready, committed, will execute. I sent confirmation messages back. Reception team being positioned. Landing site verified and secured. Technical exploitation arranged. Asylum guaranteed. Everything proceeding as planned. Final message simple. 2 weeks. 6 o'clock, we'll be there. Mike and Tom moved into position on schedule. Drove separately into the operational area. Took different routes. Arrived 12 hours apart. Established observation posts around the landing strip. One position with direct view of the runway. Another position covering the approach route from the Soviet facility. Both positions had good concealment, good sight lines, multiple escape routes. They settled in for 3 days of watching and waiting. Their reports came through encrypted radio at scheduled intervals. Landing strip remained clear. No civilian activity. No military patrols. No signs of surveillance. Weather conditions favorable. Terrain suitable for operation. Everything green across the board. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes the operational environment cooperates completely. This was shaping up to be one of those times. I ran through contingency planning one more time. What if the Soviets detected the defection during flight? What if they scrambled interceptors? What if the MiG had mechanical problems? What if the landing gear failed on touchdown? What if Soviet commandos arrived before we evacuated? What if host nation military intervened? What if Yevgeny lost his nerve at the last minute? You can't plan for every possibility, but you can prepare for the most likely scenarios. You can have backup options. You can establish escape routes. You can position resources to respond to emergencies. That's the difference between professional operations and amateur bullshit. Professionals think through the what-ifs and prepare accordingly. The night before the operation, I loaded my vehicle. Communications equipment, medical supplies, weapons, ammunition, water, food, extraction gear, everything I'd need for reception and initial evacuation. Checked everything twice, tested the radios, verified the batteries, made sure nothing was missing, made sure nothing would fail when it mattered most. Sent final confirmation through the dead drop. Simple message. Tomorrow. Execute as planned. Yevgeny's response came back 4 hours later. Even simpler. Confirmed. I tried to sleep. Didn't work. Lay in the dark hotel room running through the operation one more time, visualizing each step, thinking through each decision point, preparing mentally for what was coming. A Soviet pilot was going to steal a MiG-23, fly it across hostile territory, land at an abandoned airstrip, walk away from his entire life, and I was going to be there when he did it. 3 o'clock in the morning, I gave up on sleep, got dressed, grabbed my gear, headed for the vehicle. The operation was 12 hours away. Time to move into position. Time to make this happen. I drove through the empty streets, headed south toward the abandoned airstrip. The stars were clear overhead. The air was cool. Everything was quiet. Everything was ready. Now it was up to Yevgeny. He had to climb into that cockpit. He had to start those engines. He had to take off. He had to break from his flight plan. And he had to land that bird at the strip we'd prepared. That's a lot to ask. But warriors understand something others don't. Sometimes the hardest thing is staying in a bad situation. Sometimes the courage isn't in fighting. It's in walking away. Yevgeny was about to demonstrate that courage. And I was about to be there when he did. I reached the airstrip around 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours before Yevgeny's scheduled takeoff. Plenty of time to get into position. Plenty of time to coordinate final preparations with Mike and Tom. Plenty of time to run through last-minute checks and make sure everything was ready. I parked the vehicle inside the old terminal building, hidden from aerial observation, easy access to the runway when needed. Mike's position was 300 yards northwest of the main runway. Good elevation, clear sight lines to the northern approach. Tom's position was 200 yards southeast, covering the southern sector and the access road. Both positions had radio contact. Both operators were ready. I keyed the radio. All positions, this is command. Radio check. Northwest position, read you clear. Mike responded. Southeast position, read you clear. Tom confirmed. Command copies both. Status report. Northwest position, all clear. No activity, no movement. Weather conditions favorable. Wind from the northeast at 5 knots. Visibility unlimited. We're ready. Southeast position confirms. All clear. Access road quiet. No civilian traffic. No military presence. Standing by. Command copies. Maintain observation. Pilot's scheduled takeoff is 6 o'clock. Expected arrival here approximately 7:30. We hold position until the bird is on the ground. No movement until I give the word. Confirm. Both positions confirmed. We settled in to wait. That's most of what special operations is waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the target to appear. Waiting for conditions to align. You prepare for hours or days or weeks, and then everything happens in minutes. The waiting is the hard part. Staying alert, staying focused, not letting your mind wander, not letting boredom or fatigue compromise your readiness. I check my watch, 4:30 in the morning, 90 minutes until Yevgeny's scheduled takeoff, 210 minutes until expected arrival. I ran through equipment checks one more time. Radio functioning properly, medical supplies ready, weapons loaded and safe, everything in position, everything ready. The sky started to lighten around 5 o'clock. Dawn coming. Good timing. Enough light to see clearly, but not so much that we'd be exposed to casual observation. The morning was quiet. No wind. No clouds. Perfect flying weather. If Yevgeny was going to do this, conditions couldn't be better. 5:30. 30 minutes until scheduled takeoff. I wondered what Yevgeny was doing right now. Was he eating breakfast in the Soviet facility dining hall? Was he conducting pre-flight checks on the MiG? Was he reviewing his flight plan one last time? Was he thinking about his wife and daughter back in the Soviet Union? Was he having second thoughts? Was he committed, No way to know. No communication possible. He was either going to show up or he wasn't. We'd know in 2 hours. 6 o'clock came. Yevgeny should be taking off right now. Climbing into that MiG, starting engines, rolling down the runway at the Soviet facility, lifting off, beginning his flight plan. For the first 30 minutes, everything would look normal. Standard training flight, standard navigation exercise, nothing to raise suspicions. Then he'd deviate, drop to low altitude, break south, go silent on radio, point the nose toward freedom, and commit. 6:30. If Yevgeny held to the plan, he'd broken south by now, flying low. Terrain following, using hills and valleys to mask his radar signature, heading toward this airstrip. Committed, no turning back, every second taking him farther from the Soviet Union and closer to us. 7 o'clock, Mike's voice came through the radio. Command, northwest position. I've got possible jet noise. Very faint, coming from the north. Could be our bird. My pulse spiked. Command copies. Southeast position, do you have audio? Negative command, too far south. But if northwest has it, that's consistent with northern approach. All positions, maintain observation. Stand by. The noise got louder, definitely jet engines. Getting closer. Mike confirmed again, northwest position, definite jet noise. Single aircraft, low altitude, heading this direction. Could be him. I grabbed my binoculars, scanned the northern horizon. Nothing yet. The engine noise continued to build. Louder, closer. Then I saw it. Small, dark shape against the lightning sky. Low, very low, just above the tree line. Coming fast. MiG-23 profile. Had to be Yevgeny. All positions, I have visual. Bird is inbound from the north. Low altitude. Single aircraft. This is it. Maintain positions. No movement until the aircraft is stopped and pilot is clear. The MiG came in fast. Yevgeny was flying it exactly like you'd expect from a pilot trying to avoid radar detection. Low-level approach, high speed, using terrain masking, professional flying. He crossed over the threshold of the runway. Landing gear coming down. Flaps extending. Nose rising slightly as he configured for landing. Everything smooth. Everything controlled. This pilot knew what he was doing. The MiG touched down on the main runway. Main gear first. Smooth contact despite the deteriorating surface. Nose gear settling. The screech of tires on concrete echoed across the strip. Yevgeny was using minimal braking. Smart. Didn't want to stress the cracked surface more than necessary. The aircraft decelerated smoothly. No problems. No drama. Just professional flying from a pilot who'd done this 1,000 times. The MiG rolled to taxi speed, turned off the main runway onto the old taxiway, came to a stop about 200 feet from the terminal building. Engines began winding down. The canopy opened, and Yevgeny climbed out. I keyed the radio. All positions, move now. Secure the perimeter. I've got the pilot. Mike and Tom came out of their positions, fast and smooth. Professional movement. Mike headed to establish outer perimeter. Tom moved to the aircraft itself for security and preliminary assessment. I started toward Yevgeny, who was standing next to the MiG looking around like he couldn't quite believe he'd actually done it. I walked up to him, extended my hand. Welcome to freedom. That was one hell of a flight. Yevgeny shook my hand. His grip was trembling slightly. Adrenaline, relief, fear, excitement, all of it hitting at once. I did it, he said quietly. I actually did it. You did it, I confirmed. And you did it perfectly. But we need to move fast. The Soviets are going to realize you're missing. They're going to start searching. We need to get you secured and get this bird moved before they come looking. Tom came over from the aircraft. Bird is secure. Initial assessment shows everything intact. All systems appear operational. We need heavy transport to move it, though. Can't fly it out without refueling, and we don't have the right fuel here. Transport is already arranged, I said. Should be here within 30 minutes. Until then, we maintain security and start documentation. Tom, start photographing everything. Get serial numbers off critical components. Make notes on systems configuration. Mike, maintain perimeter watch. Let me know immediately if you see any activity. Both operators acknowledged and moved to their task. Professional, efficient, no wasted motion. This was what good operations looked like. Everyone knowing their job. Everyone executing without detailed instruction. Trust and competence working together. I walked Yevgeny away from the aircraft. Needed a quick initial assessment before the heavy transport arrived. How much flight time before you broke south? 31 minutes, Yevgeny said. I followed the training flight plan exactly, stayed on course, maintained proper altitude. Everything normal on Soviet radio frequency. Then I descended to low altitude, broke south, went silent, flew terrain following for about 60 minutes to reach here. Did you see any indication of pursuit, any Soviet aircraft, any radio transmissions suggesting they knew something was wrong? Nothing, Yevgeny said. The flight plan had me scheduled for 90 minutes total. I should have about 28 minutes remaining before they expect me back. When I do not return, they will assume mechanical failure or crash. They will search the training route first. It will take them hours to realize I deviated. Good, I said. That gives us time. We're getting you out of here first. Priority is your safety. The aircraft comes second. Yevgeny nodded. Looked back at the MiG sitting on the taxiway. Strange. I flew that aircraft for 8 months, trained in it, lived in it during long missions, and now I walk away. Just leave it behind. Part of my old life. That's what defection is, I said. Leaving behind who you were. That's the price of freedom, but it's worth it. You made the right choice. The sound of heavy trucks approaching interrupted our conversation. The transport team arriving right on schedule. They came in fast, pulled up next to the MiG, started rigging the aircraft for movement. These guys were professionals. They'd moved sensitive equipment before, knew exactly what they were doing. Mike's voice came through the radio. Command, perimeter is still clear, no signs of pursuit, no Soviet activity visible, we're clean so far. Command copies. Maintain watch. Let me know immediately if that changes. The transport team worked fast. Within 25 minutes, they had the MiG loaded onto the heavy trailer. Within 35 minutes, they were ready to move. The team leader came over. We're ready to roll. We'll take the northern route, stay off main highways, move to the secure facility. Should be there in about 6 hours. Technical exploitation team is standing by. Do it, I said, and make sure you're not followed. This bird is worth a lot. Don't compromise it. Understood. We'll be careful. The transport convoy moved out. Heavy truck carrying the MiG, 2 escort vehicles, all of them disappearing down the access road toward the main highway. Mike and Tom maintained perimeter security for another 30 minutes, making sure the route stayed clear, making sure no pursuit developed, making sure the convoy got clear before we evacuated. Finally, Mike radioed in. Command, convoy is clear. No signs of pursuit. No Soviet activity detected. Recommend we execute extraction. Command agrees. Collapse the perimeter. Rally at the terminal building. We're moving out. Mike and Tom came in from their positions, grabbed their gear, loaded into the vehicles. I took Yevgeny with me. We drove south, taking back roads, staying off major routes. Moving quickly but not so fast we'd detract attention. Standard evasion protocols. About 40 minutes into the drive, Tom radioed from his vehicle. Command, I'm monitoring Soviet radio frequencies. Lots of traffic, lots of activity. Sounds like they just realized their pilot is missing. They're scrambling search and rescue. Multiple helicopters launching from the facility. Are they headed toward the landing strip? I asked. Hard to tell from radio traffic. They're searching the original flight plan route first. Standard procedure for missing aircraft. But eventually they'll expand the search. Eventually they'll find the strip. How long do we have? Maybe 2 hours before they reach the strip. Maybe more. Depends on how long it takes them to realize this wasn't a mechanical failure. Once they figure out it was a defection, they'll get serious about searching. But by then, we'll be long gone. Keep monitoring, I said. Let me know if the situation changes. We kept driving, put distance between us and the landing strip, headed toward the safe house where Yevgeny would stay during initial debriefing. The operation was succeeding. The MiG was secured. The pilot was safe. The Soviets were chasing ghosts. Everything was working exactly as planned. About 90 minutes after leaving the strip, we reached the safe house. Secure location on the edge of a small city. Controlled access. Backup security team already in position. This was where Yevgeny would stay for the next several days while we processed initial debriefing and arranged his movement to final destination. I walked him inside, showed him his room, basic but comfortable, clean bed, private bathroom, food in the kitchen, everything he needed. You'll stay here for about 4 days, I told him. We'll do initial debriefing sessions, get background information, start building your new identity, then we'll move you to another location for detailed intelligence debriefing. After that, permanent placement. New name, new documents, new life. Everything we promised. What about my family? Yevgeny asked quietly. The question every defector asks eventually. The question that doesn't have a good answer. They're in the Soviet Union, I said. We can't reach them. We can't contact them. The Soviets will question them. We'll use them as leverage. But eventually the attention will fade. They'll be okay. It's harsh, but it's the reality. Yevgeny nodded. Didn't say anything. The weight of his decision settling on him, the realization that freedom came with permanent costs. He sat down on the bed, looked exhausted suddenly. I need to sleep, he said. I have not really slept in 4 days. Too nervous. Now that it is done, I need to sleep. Sleep, I said. Rest. You're safe now. You're secure. You're free. We'll start the debriefing process tomorrow. I left him in the room, walked outside, called into headquarters. Operation successful. Pilot secure. Aircraft secured and being transported to exploitation facility. No casualties, no compromises. Clean execution from start to finish. About 3 hours later, Tom radioed in with an update. Command, Soviet helicopters just arrived at the landing strip. 4 birds. Ground teams deploying. They're searching the area like they're looking for crash wreckage. Standard search pattern. No indication they know it was a defection yet. How long before they figure it out, I asked. Hard to say. Once they fail to find debris, once they realize there's no wreckage, they'll start asking different questions. Maybe a few hours, maybe longer, but eventually they'll know. And when they do, they'll be pissed as hell. Let them be pissed, I said. By the time they figure it out, the bird will be stripped down and analyzed. The pilot will be relocated. They can search all they want. They're not finding anything. That was the operation. That was how it went down. Soviet pilot Defects with his MiG-23 lands at an abandoned airstrip in South America, walks into freedom. We secure the aircraft and the pilot, execute clean extraction, get both of them to secure locations. The Soviets realize what happened hours too late. They search, they protest, they make accusations, but they can't prove anything. And without proof, there's nothing they can do except the loss. The technical exploitation took 6 months. Every system on that aircraft was analyzed. Every component was studied. The intelligence product that came out filled classified libraries, informed tactical doctrine, shaped procurement decisions. The MiG-23 was a frontline Soviet fighter in 1980. Understanding its capabilities meant understanding Soviet air power. And understanding Soviet air power meant being able to counter it effectively. Yevgeny's debriefing took longer, 9 months of detailed interviews. He provided information on Soviet training methods, operational procedures, maintenance protocols, pilot selection, unit organization, tactical doctrine, all of it valuable, all of it actionable, all of it intelligence that got disseminated and used. After debriefing concluded, Yevgeny got what we'd promised: new identity, new documents, permanent residency, financial support, job placement assistance, the whole package. We kept our commitments. That's important. Word gets around in the exile community. If you promise something and don't deliver, nobody trusts you. Future operations become impossible. I followed Yevgeny's progress for a few years. He had a rough adjustment initially. A lot of defectors do. But he made it through, got work as an aviation consultant, used his technical knowledge to help design countermeasures and training programs, built a new life, found contentment. That's about the best outcome you can hope for with defectors. The Soviets never confirmed where their MiG went. They knew Yevgeny had defected, but they couldn't prove who had the aircraft. We made sure of that. The exploitation was conducted at a classified facility. The intelligence product was tightly compartmented. Information about the defection was restricted. The Soviets could suspect, could make accusations, but they couldn't prove anything. The operation became a case study within the intelligence community, example of how to handle defection operations properly, how to assess opportunity, how to plan and execute under tight timelines, how to secure and exploit intelligence product, how to protect and resettle defectors. All the things we did right became lessons for future operations. Volunteer for everything. That's the principle that made this operation possible. When my asset showed up at midnight with news about a Soviet pilot wanting to defect, I could have said no. Could have decided it was too risky, too complicated, too fast. I could have passed it up the chain. I could have played it safe. But warriors don't think that way. We evaluate opportunities based on potential, not risk. We ask what's possible if this works, not what's dangerous if it fails. That's what being a warrior means. It means positioning yourself for significant action. It means being ready to seize opportunities. It means saying yes when others say no. The Yevgeny operation happened because I was in South America. I was there because I'd volunteered for an assignment. The SF guys were available because they'd volunteered for deployments. Yevgeny made his move because he'd prepared himself mentally. All of us had positioned ourselves through our choices to be ready when the moment came. You prepare yourself so you're ready when opportunities appear. You volunteer for assignments so you're positioned where opportunities happen. You never quit when things get difficult so you can follow through. Physical fitness, mental preparation, continuous learning, never quitting. All of these work together to create capability that allows you to capitalize on opportunities others miss. Freedom isn't free. Opportunity isn't guaranteed. Success isn't automatic. You have to position yourself, prepare yourself, commit yourself. And when the moment comes, you have to have the courage to say yes and the discipline to follow through. That's what made this operation successful. That's what separates warriors from everyone else. A warrior is someone who wishes to be involved, period. That's the definition. That's the standard. Being involved means saying yes when opportunities present themselves. It means volunteering for assignments others pass on. It means staying ready physically and mentally so you can execute when required. It means never quitting when things get difficult. It means following through on commitments no matter what obstacles appear. The Yevgeny operation demonstrated this: physical readiness, mental preparation, willingness to volunteer, commitment to follow through. All of it came together in 2 weeks that produced intelligence value lasting years and gave one man freedom he couldn't have achieved any other way. You don't obsess over risk. You manage it. You don't fear failure. You prepare to succeed. You don't wait for perfect conditions. You create favorable conditions through preparation and action. You don't ask permission. You seize opportunities. You don't make excuses. You make things happen. Be ready. Be positioned. Be willing. And when the moment comes, execute. Volunteer for everything. Never turn anything down. Get involved. Stay ready. And when the moment comes, execute. That's it. That's the whole thing. Now go do it.